Let's take a look at this story. I mentioned this at the beginning. Caitlyn Jenner, the former Olympic gold medalist, says she opposes trans girls participating in women's sport. Miss Jenner, who came out as trans in 2015, told a reporter it just isn't fair and we have to protect girls' sports in our schools. A number of US states are considering a ban on trans girls in women's sports, and the debate hasn't gone unnoticed, of course, over here. But is it unfair for trans girls to participate in women's sport? Let's speak with Bev Jackson, co-founder of the LGB Alliance, and Lu Fincher, who's an advocate for the LGBTQ community. Afternoon to you both. Bev Jackson, is Caitlyn Jenner right?
Well, yes, I do think so. And I think that it's probably really good to listen to someone with this kind of lived experience, can we say. It reminds me also of Renee Richards. Renee Richards was transitioned a very long time ago and decided at some point to participate in women's tennis. And then quite recently said that she really shouldn't have done that. She's had kind of a change of heart and realizes that it really wasn't fair. And I think that what Caitlyn Jenner said is just logical and makes sense. And I agree with that. Yes.
And Lu, I mean, the fact that this comes from somebody who, you could say really has a lived experience of their own opinion, is that the game changer, do you think, for this debate?
I think it's a complicated issue. I don't think it is as simple as we just exclude a whole group of people from participating in something that happens all over the world. I think Caitlyn Jenner is often a controversial person within the queer community. She is someone who lives in a place of privilege. So I don't necessarily take her words as gospel, because there are quite a lot of
even though
trans.
this is a former, very senior in her previous life, a very senior athlete, and also running for governor of California, a very kind of liberal state where you wouldn't imagine she would come out with something like this unless she felt very confident about her views.
Well, I guess we'll see how that goes for her.
But is it not logical what she's saying? I mean, the raw reality is that whatever Caitlyn Jenner's current story is, she is acknowledging that biologically she still would have an advantage over other women.
Well, again, I just don't think it's as simple as that. I mean, she isn't competing after she has transitioned, so I just don't think it's as simple as that. I think there are a lot of things that happen to someone's body when they transition using hormone therapy. If someone is born male and they have a male frame, and after they take hormones, they are operating under much weaker muscle mass, and there's just a lot that there is. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, let me just put that to you, Bev. I mean, is that not reasonable, Bev? People do they undergo a course, and the medical treatment and the various drugs that would involve would address some of the concerns that yourself and the likes of Caitlyn Jenner has.
Well, I just want to go back to something that Lu said about excluding people. Nobody wants to exclude anybody, transgender or otherwise, from sport. That would be horrible. And everyone has a right to take part in sport. But sport is segregated by sex for good reasons. And what you just asked me, Ian, was about the changes that occur when someone goes through transition. And that has to do with the testosterone level. But it doesn't change the fact that males have larger lung capacity, larger heart capacity. It doesn't change the fact that they have narrower hips, which is an enormous advantage, for instance, in running and in cycling. So there are, in fact, overall, although there will be a slight decrease in muscle strength with the hormone treatment, most of the effects of the enormous boost of testosterone which males have at male puberty are not affected. So it really isn't fair, and we have to look not only at fairness in terms of trans people, but also at fairness for women and girls. And girls, we really need to encourage girls to take part in sport. Twice as many girls drop out of sport as boys after puberty, and 2 million fewer women take part in sport in the UK compared to men. So we really want to encourage girls and women in sport.
Why is it always concentrated on trans women competing though? Like it seems like the conversation is always focused on trans women competing amongst cis women, but we tend to not talk about trans men competing with cis men, and it's often we talk about the safety of cis women and cis people in general, but by that logic, should we not then be concerned with the safety of trans people competing with cisgendered men? You know, if we're going to go via that logic, I'm not saying
that's a really interesting question, and it is in fact the case that people who go from female to male have to sign a disclaimer saying that they are aware of the risks of playing with other males. And so the reason that we're focusing here is that we know that biological males, in spite of going through the transition, as I was saying before, have a huge advantage in terms of muscle strength and various other qualities, so that it makes it completely unfair for the women and girls for them to take part. It isn't the same the other way around, so that would be a false equivalence.
But then when does, sorry Bev, but like where does that end? Because then I think what's also interesting about sport is that we kind of do need to dispel the myth that that there is some sort of level playing field. Like every human has advantages and disadvantages that were given to them at birth, because that's just how nature is. Nature is not fair in the way that she distributes attributes and weaknesses and strengths. So if we look at somewhere like Indonesia, which has quite a short national average when it comes to height, but then we look at somewhere like the Netherlands, which has quite a high national average, is it then fair to say that we place people like that? Like, where does it end? Like, do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah, I see what you mean, but actually it's very, very well documented that males on the whole have an enormous physical advantage compared to females, and you can see that it's 10% with running, and it's 30% with lifting weights and so on. And there is what you're arguing for. Essentially, it sounds like you're arguing for abolishing women's sport, and obviously I'm not in favor of that.
Not at all, not at all, not at all. What I guess what I'm pushing at is that I think the way that we socialize boys and girls from children could also have a huge effect on how women and men do in sports. Like we often, when we're playing with children when they're younger, if we deem a child a boy, we often are a lot more rough. We encourage them to climb trees, play football, hurt yourself, learn from those things. Where with girls, we tend to be a bit more protective. And I just think that these things also can have a big influence on how we're socialized and how children go off into sports and how those things are looked at.
I mean, are you, Lu? Can I just interject? I just wanted to clarify, Lu. No, that's okay. I just wanted to. Are you saying then that ultimately, somebody like Caitlyn Jenner was actually always a female anyway? So therefore,
I would never speak on behalf of someone else.
Well, no, somebody like that. So somebody who transitions was always female, and therefore any physical advantage they have is their good luck.
I mean, when it comes to gender identity, do I believe that someone who is yes, I do, and I think most trans people would also argue that they have always felt, as long as they could understand the concept of gender, they understood that they were male or female or something else. I'm not saying that this topic of trans people competing in sports is a simple topic or is going to have a simple solution. But I think as an ever-evolving society in the 21st century, I think by just saying that they shouldn't compete is a disservice to our intelligence as humans. Like we have conquered.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't ever say. We wouldn't ever say that anybody should not compete. But in fact, but
there are a lot of people saying that.
No, of course they should compete.
Is one of them.
No, what she's saying is that they should compete in their own sex class. And that's what World Rugby decided. World Rugby commissioned pages and pages of research. Really, it was there was a lot of pressure on them to admit trans women to women's rugby. So they really felt the need to commission a lot of scientific studies, and they did commission so many studies. It became very, very clear that there was enormous danger to women for if trans women took part.
But again, the focus is on cis people again, is on cisgendered people again. I've looked at the World Rugby's statement about it, and again, that the focus is in fact in the same paragraph they say. They make their statement about trans women, and then they literally have a sentence that says, but trans men can compete in rugby at any level. So again,
as I've explained, that's because...
But if their logic is about safety...
But you're not gaining advantage, are you?
That's why trans men
but their logic is about the safety of it. Like, it's about the safety of keeping these women safe. So, you know, but I
mean, that's a reasonable point, Bev, isn't it? Should it not work the other way around? If you have somebody who is, you know, if we are looking at the physical characteristics of someone, their birth characteristics that have informed their early part of their adulthood and their strength and all of that, then the health and safety aspect would apply the other way round.
Yes, and it does. And that's why trans men have to sign a disclaimer saying that they accept that there are risks to playing with men. I just want to point out, you know, we started as LGB Alliance precisely because of this confusion that's grown up, this unfortunate confusion between biological sex, which governs a lot of things in life. It governs sexual orientation. It's important in health. It's important in sport, and other areas of life in which some people find gender identity really important. Gender identity should not be a factor in sport. That's about bodies, and bodies are different. They're male and female, and those are the factors that matter there. And that's what matters to us at LGB Alliance, because we're here to stand up for people who know that sexual orientation is about sex. It's not about gender or gender identity.
Lu, final word on this?
I just think it's quite short-sighted. We have, as humans, we have come a long way. Me being a person of color able to sit in this country free is a testament to that. So I think in 20 years time, in 30 years time, 50 years time, we may look at this issue and may laugh at some of our responses, because I think a lot of the arguments that come up when it comes for trans people in sports, like the figures just don't add up. Like that trans women are not dominating women's sports. They are not winning medals here and there and everywhere. Like it's not as big of a as a takeover as people seem to make out it is. So okay. I will be interested to see how we progress past this point. Okay,
Lu, lovely to speak. Thank you. Lu Fincher, advocate for the LGBTQ community. The other voice you heard there was Bev Jackson, co-founder of the LGB Alliance.